It's time to start. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Great. So,
Ok, Raúl, no te olvides la registración.
oh yes. Grabar aquí.
Recording in progress.
So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are listening to us. Greeting from Mexico City. This is Raúl Pineda from Mexico City, biochemist, DFW Internal Communications Manager. It's my privilege to introduce to our Vice President, Dr. Shankara Shetty, that is going to share us a brief description of our organization. Welcome you all, and welcome Dr. Shankara.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, or evening, depending on where in the world you are listening to us. Greetings, Raúl Pineda, biochemist from Mexico City, DFW Director of International Communications. It is my privilege to introduce the Master of International Relations, Mark Keeley, DFW Director of International Relations, who will welcome our Vice President. On behalf of our steering committee and our translation staff, I greet you from South Africa and welcome you warmly to the 54th Doctors Federation for the World DFW Conference Week, today, June 19th, 2022. Today, we once again have an academic session that promises to be proactive, interesting, and innovative. We will start with a brief overview of what we do at DFW and where we are going. Doctors Federation for the World, in short DFW, is an international organization that over the past 2 years has played a relentless, productive, and important role on 5 continents. DFW has built hope and broken paradigms. Founded in 2020 in Pimo, Italy by Dr. Fanny Casello, DFW is a non-profit organization which has been endorsed by numerous health specialists from all over the world. Our aim is to address acute and chronic diseases from a pathophysiological point of view, with a long-term approach in which people from 5 continents participate on a voluntary basis. Our innovative, disruptive, and constructive strength has enabled real-time interdisciplinary communication and work of health specialists with simultaneous translation into 4 languages: English, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. Our mission is focused on providing integrative health solutions for human well-being. At the moment, to slow and stop the spread of SARS-CoV-2 in the world. Our vision is to become the leading international organization in the search for safe, accessible, effective, and efficient treatments and preventative interventions, with clinical practice guidelines, traditional and integrative medicine, protection of vulnerable populations in crisis situations, and public policy. Our values seek plurality and open equality of ideas in humanity. Our objectives focus on the generation of solutions of long-term value, as well as close collaboration between clinicians, researchers, and the general public. Finally, our activities have focused both on the communication of monthly preventative health schemes, as well as interdisciplinary work with authorities and governments. It is our physicians around the globe who are using evidence-based medicine approaches to feed back to governments and society with preventative and curative schemes. Thanks to the careful attention, interest, and desire of health professionals around the globe, their efforts have been transformed into action to find answers to today's health problems. In this way, we have held 91 keynote lectures with the following profile of speakers: 51 with doctorate levels, 25 with master's degrees, 15 with a specialty and/or bachelor's degree. In terms of our global influence, DFW has held conferences 42 in America, 25 in Europe, 11 in Africa, 12 in Asia, and 1 in Oceania. DFW is a proactive organization that is recognized for its deep, proactive approach to community and long-term collaborative work with governments. It is respectful of local health decisions in each country. It does not seek confrontation, the deterioration of the status quo, or disruption of current health. We focus on doctors, academics, researchers, and other health allies, psychologists, social workers, biochemists, and virologists. In addition, we target government authorities, health systems, regulatory officers, social media, intellectuals, philanthropists, and civil society. For health and logistical reasons, we consider it a priority to integrate our progress into an international summit to be held virtually from the 11th to the 15th of September 2022. It will be thanks to the integrative and collaborative work of directors, deputy directors, and task forces from 5 continents that we will consolidate 4 days of intense clinical, academic, social, and public policy exchange. Our management is based on 4 main axes or pillars: clinical practice guidelines, traditional and integrative medicine, impact on communities at risk, and public policies in crisis situations. Thanks to a novel talent attraction system, we develop and stimulate hundreds of people around the globe to join our organization. At DFW, we firmly believe that hope can be built by changing paradigms. Finally, DFW is concentrating on strengthening its structure, consolidating its objectives, supporting and receiving support from clinicians, researchers, and academics, disseminating our mission, vision, and values, as well as joining forces with like-minded medical associations. We invite you to be part of our family and help us with your donation to support our technological structure and translators. In order to consolidate our legacy, I present to you the 6-to-1 program, which consists of incorporating 6 languages, 5 continents, 4 strategic pillars, 3 key values, 2 fundamental goals, and a single objective. At DFW, we are convinced that only by dreaming big, working tirelessly, staying focused, and working surrounded by valuable people like yourselves will we achieve and exceed our goals. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will now welcome Dr. Mark Keeley from Canada, who will be our Master of Ceremonies today and introduce our panel of speakers. Welcome, Mark.
Is Mark in the audience? Or Dr. Macmillan in the audience? No yet.
No.
Okay, then let's move on. I will have the opportunity to introduce you all Dr. Nan Kishore Sharma from the University of Florida, a naturopathic nutritionist and doctor, master in energy medicine, Reiki, and psychological powers. Dr. Sharma is a world-renowned naturopath, nutritionist, and Reiki grandmaster. He has been running his own hospital for 20 years successfully, working on cancer and other terrible diseases in 176 national and international honors and awards, and he holds several world records in the field of Reiki and past life regression. He is currently founding president of the world's largest organization, Reiki Healing Foundation in New Delhi. So welcome you, Dr. Sharma. It's an honor to have you here. He will talk us about energy medicine, a natural healing booster for strongest immunity. Welcome, Dr. Sharma. The microphones are yours.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Dr. Sharma, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Greetings to all my friends who have joined today, and namaste from my India. So it's a really great pleasure to be a part of this today, dear Doctor Federation, and today to present my subject, the Reiki, the energy medicine, which can really boost our immune system so that every person can protect himself and he can heal himself and he can remain healthy all the time by using these powers.
Dr. Sharma, I apologize for interrupting you. I really apologize for it. Do you remember we mentioned that Dr. Erez would start as he has a meeting? So I apologize for the inconvenience. And Dr. Erez, could you please share your screen? My apologies again, Dr. Sharma.
I'm sorry for this.
Let me then introduce Dr. Erez, please. Let me find his resume here. Right. So Dr. Ofer Erez. Ofer is a senior lecturer and program leader in Rotham Center for Practical Professional Training. He has acquired his BA, his bachelor's in psychology at Bar Ilan University, Israel, and his master's in science in cognitive behavioral psychology in Derby University, UK. He conducted a doctoral research of professional practice process at Derby University, UK, investigating his joint practice with a professional extensively in research in the field of practical psychotherapy knowledge development in psychotherapy, its communication to a trainee. He has investigated and produced developments in the fields of epistemology and research methodology, and he has conducted interdisciplinary research with his medical physician, Dr. Anna Christial Levy. I apologize my pronunciation. So Dr. Erez, you are very welcome to our summit, and the microphones are yours.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very pleased to participate in this event and present an idea. This idea is a byproduct of interdisciplinary group, team conversation that we had together. When the idea was that the similarity that we can find between the immune system and parents protectiveness, both which meant to protect the child, and we find similarity in the mental and psychological structure and mechanism of overprotection in the etiology of autoimmune disease. So I am Ofer Erez. I'm a psychotherapist, parental counselor, researcher. I'm from Rotham Center for Practical Professional Training. And this idea was developed together with my co-researchers, Anat Ben Salmon, which is a psychotherapist, and Dr. Anna Krista Lilov, which is a medical doctor, gynecologist and obstetrician. And together we were doing many research and many conversation on a subject which is related to both medicine and psychotherapy. Now, as
the
I said
PowerPoint is
before,
not on. We don't see the presentation.
we don't see the presentation.
Please share.
Thank you very much for the. Thank you, Anat. So as you can see, the presentation, this is the research team, Anat, which is my research partner, you can see, and Dr. Anna Krista Lilov, medical doctor. So why we are targeting on autoimmune disease? Mainly because despite the prevalence of autoimmune disease and the variety of the factors which are involved in their etiology, we still don't know for sure what are the causes for autoimmune disease, why it appears, why it happens, what is the mechanism that ignite all this physical procedure. Now, as psychotherapist and physician, we've worked with parents, children, and adolescents for many years. We propose an analogy between the dynamics of the influence overprotective parenting has upon the child, emotional development, and the development of his immune system and physical health. For the sake of interpretation, I'll try to bind as much as I can to the presentation to your understanding. Now, today, after more than 150 years of research in psychology, we know that the parents' behavior towards the child and the parents' behavior in the relationship between themselves, as well as the environment in which the child develops, has the most significant influence upon the child and the social well-being. The parents are the primary social agents that make the socialization process for the child. They teach him, they practice him, they are the main model for his development. Now, every parent wants to protect his child, but can overprotective parents seriously damage the healthy of the offspring? Might be a possibility that too much protection is dangerous. We went to search for this idea in numerous articles, and we basically established a pathway of articles, researchers that we collected from both discipline, medicine, and psychology into one pathway of rationale that combines between parents and their behavior in childhood, in specific overprotective parents, and the development of autoimmune disease and conditions for autoimmune disease. According to most of the professional agreement, good enough parents or effective parents is defined as that which prepares the child to meet demands of the specific culture or subculture in which they live. It's very nice, but are we really preparing them? Always by defending them. How much is good enough definition for autoimmune disease going like that. Autoimmune disease are a clinical manifestation of aberrant and hyper-reactive autoimmune response to self-antigen of normally body constitutes leading to inflammation, cell injury, or a functional disturbance. I'll put few basics and then we'll combine them together. Now, when a child is born, is depend upon his parents 100%. They are responsible for all his needs and for whatever he needs to survive in the world. Now, this inevitable dependence of the child upon his parents provides the parents simultaneously both with a sense of power and control, omnipotence. I can give life, I can sustain life, I can provide life, and at the same time, the need to control and protect the child is accompanied with anxiety, which is evoked both within the parent and the child. These parents who cannot contain their own and the baby narcissistic stage of development tend to develop a continuous state of internal anxiety. What is overprotective parenting style? Talk a little bit about overprotective parenting style. So, overprotective parents show guardian behavior that is excessive considering the child development stage and the actual risk level in their environment. Protecting the child from danger and keeping him from safe provides the parents with a sense of control and even omnipotence. The need to maintain this position goes behind the child's objective need for protection. It's way too much for his needs in a certain moment. He's not in such a risk, yet the parents is rushing to save the child. Due to the unconscious need of the parents, they practice overprotective parenting. In doing so, instead of protecting the child from danger, the parent potentially put the child at risk. For example, a child is climbing on a ladder and in the pool, in the park, and the parents is rushing to him in fear that he might fall, and this is transmitted to the child, this fear. This fear is putting him at risk. And there is a tragic loop. Why? Because children whose parents protect them from any kind of challenges, including challenges in education, are at risk of developing anxiety. Parental overprotective behavior usually prevents children from learning, from facing challenges, from developing and implementing a practical coping mechanism confronting these challenges. And this is an analogy to the immune system, which is relatively immature at birth and has to evolve during life of exposure to multiple foreign challenges to childhood, and then young and mature adulthood. We have to practice our immune system as well. It had to be challenged. And by this practice, we are building its capabilities. There are some parental behaviors who could have unintended consequences. Overprotective parents are more likely to raise children who develop allergies or autoimmune disease later in life. Few more research about it. We can find that among the numerous influence on the development of emotional regulation in children, the early caregiving relationship comprised the fundamental context. And children develop regularly methods that can be classified or either engage or as either engage or avoidance. Now, parents' elevated sense of responsibility for the consequences of their children's action lead to greater intrusiveness in the parents' interaction with their child. Highly anxious parents may experience an exaggerated level of responsibility, which promote an anxiogenic parental behavior. Exercising avoidance of unwanted internal experience may initially result in distress reduction, thereby negatively reinforcing this evidence. However, the chronic implement of experiential avoidance has paradoxical outcome, resulting in increased anxiety and dysregulation. We have this theory, the old friend theory, that suggests that while in childhood, all these diseases that we have in childhood, basically they are there in order to practice and train our ability to confront external infection. So old friend theory suggests that frequent exposure to harmless microbe that have co-evolved with humans help to train, develop, and the immune system. When people isolated one from another and spend their time mostly indoor, this may reduce their exposure to richer microbiomes from other sources, thereby limiting the development of their immune system. So while we are in segregation, like in COVID time, and we are not exposed one to each other, in a way, our immune system was weakened. And I remember that when in Israel, we came back to school after the COVID, when it's open up for coming back to school, suddenly everybody was sick with flu, and everybody that they weren't sick in all the winter suddenly flew in the middle of the summer. So that's an example for what's happening when you're not exposed, suddenly exposure. Now, experiential avoidance, which is a psychological mechanism, may be transmitted from parents to children through behavioral modeling. Parents model experiential avoidance in the same manner as they model behavioral avoidance, and this supports the use of experientially avoidance method and contributes to the preservation of the child anxiety over the time. Parental behavior, specifically control ones, for example, overprotection and intrusiveness, has been found to be one of the strongest predictors of both development and preservation of anxiety. So, the hypothesis that we have, right, after examining the psychological pathway, is that we're going to find a link, right, physiological link between parental anxiety to parental overprotection, child anxiety, which lead to child physical stress, and child physiological overprotection, thus autoimmune disease, overprotective immune system. Basically, what are autoimmune disease? So we talk about here about a clinical manifestation. We talk about dysfunctional, hyperreactive immune response to self-antigen or normal bodily tissues, which lead to inflammation, cell injury, or functional disturbance. Now, most of the disorder, all disorder are characterized by systemic or organ inflammation, specific inflammation causing tissue damage, and it has separation, artificial separation between autoinflammatory diseases and autoimmune disease, which are different one from each other. One is a systemic or organ-specific inflammation that occur in the absence of high titer autoantibodies and autoreactive lymphocyte, and the other is in the presence of pathophysiological involvement of autoantibodies and self-reactive lymphocyte population. Now, this division is a bit problematic because some disorders start with mixed immunological patterns that derive inflammations, and the second problem is that changes in immunologic factor can occur over the course of the disease. And the third is that tissue damage causes the exposure of intercellular and nuclear components to immune cells and their activation. thus lead to autoimmune production and self-destruction lymphocyte responses. It's like a cascade of happenings that one lead to the other. Nevertheless, we have a sort of spectrum, inflammatory spectrum, that runs between monogenic autoinflammatory condition and classical autoimmune condition. And in between, we can see all the autoimmune diseases that we know, something in between. We chose to focus in our discussions. We chose to focus over the rheumatoid arthritis, RA, which what we know about it, that the antibodies exist in the condition, but may not be the initiative cause, but a phenomena of RA. We have see evidence for antibodies that exist in matter of RA, but though to be an immune-mediated disease, but this etiology for the RA is still unknown. And of course, we have another very important issue in RA. It's the cytokine cascade. Tumor necrosis factor, TNF, and interleukin-1 are involved in the destruction of the tissue and the joint. So basically what we can see here, we can see this cascade of actions that one leads to the other through activation of T cell and production of cytokines, IL-1, interleukin-1, and then entry of blood cells, white blood cells, into the synovial tissue and fluid, and then TNF and interleukin-1 stimulate cells to secrete tissue destructive enzyme, thus lead to production of osteolysis, the cells which digest bone in the joint, and this thus activation in the bone below the joints, causing the erosion of bone tissues. So we have this cascade of actions that one leads to the other. Now, what exactly initiates this cascade is still unknown, and there are several ideas about it. It might be hormonal or environmental, the etiology of this autoimmune disease. It might be genetics or immunological. There is a lot of research around this idea, but yet at least 50% of the cases, the initiating factor are still unknown. Even the initiating factors are still unknown. Just they can see the outcome. We thought to direct the search for answer to a very unique system that is combined. Not many doctors in the world are working on all these three systems together. This is why maybe it's a little bit not thought before, because we couldn't find evidence for that, but nevertheless, the neuroendocrine immune network, NEI, composed from cells and product of the nervous system, endocrine gland, and immune system that interact one with each other. Basically, the same components activate material and interact, and they are influencing one of the other. And this relationship between psychiatric disorders and autoimmune diseases can be evident in few major diseases that is very well familiar with, such as OCD. There is a review that demonstrates a significant increase in inflammatory and rheumatic biomarkers in patients with OCD, especially before starting OCD treatment. In the beginning, after they can find it go down. The most significant inflammatory biomarkers were TNF interleukins, neutrophil, and lymphocyte ratio. So we can see that the same ingredients that are in RA can be also in OCD. The possible role of psychological stress and of the major stress-related hormone as a etiological factor in the pathogenesis of autoimmune disease has been discussed in recent reviews a little bit. Examining immune data of patients who had experienced an earthquake disaster showed that patient who suffered from PTSD has higher levels of inflammation cytokine scores compared to control who experienced the earthquake but did not suffer from PTSD. They conclude that there is an increase of inflammatory activity in PTSD. Again, we can see a psychiatric situation that you can see evidence for a higher level of cytokines, which is agents of infections. And another research demonstrated the correlation between the presence of thyroid autoimmunity and mood and anxiety disorder. You know, as psychotherapists, we are familiar. From the first day we learn about depression, the first thing that we need to do is outrule the possibility that the person is suffering from a problem in his thyroid gland, because that might lead to depression, and there's no rationale in doing psychotherapy with someone who suffered from depression that is caused by the thyroid gland. So that's another mediator between physical and bodily constitutions. We can see the interaction in the NEI network in two levels. We can see stress hormones like epinephrine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and substance P that may lead to immune dysregulation or alter or amplified cytokine production, resulting in autoimmune disease or reduced resistance to infection or disease. And we can see it also in mediators such as glycogen, insulin, growth factor, and numerous other mediators which are involved in this process. So basically, what we are talking about, infection or trauma, that can lead to dysregulation of the balance of cytokines, then to stress response. Now, how the body will know to differentiate between stress which is caused due to infection and stress that is caused due to psychological reasons, to something emotional. So we are all familiar with cortisol, which is appears in anxiety. And basically, when stressogenic events, physical or infection, attacks the body, they awaken the neuroendocrine system, which accompanied by cytokine immune response. Nevertheless, the body in anxiety releases cortisol, who acts to reduce the immune responses, which would be otherwise cause harm to individual. We come to a research that was declaring that there is receptors for cortisol on white blood cells. So definitely they can differentiate between infection and high level of cytokines, which is caused by a high level of anxiety. There's one problem, okay? We learn to over the time to cope with these events. We have some control over when to awaken the response, but what extent when to switch it off to conscious control of our hormonal response. Sharon, I can hear you as well, and it's a problem. Excuse me. So basically what you can see is in the graph is that in face of repeated attacks, repeated hazards to the system, the cortisol level in red is basically going through habituation, okay? And it goes down to the time. Now, when a child is growing in a normal environment, the child is gradually learns to moderate his stress response and to turn it off in a timely manner. Yet states of chronic state, such as growing up with overprotective parents, can cause emotional disorders when the child grows up. And what we know that when a child is born in a high sensitive, high anxiety, he develops a state of hypocortisolism, which develops and related to overuse of stress response or an indifferent response due to intense frequency of stressogenic event. So a child with parents that all the time is jumping on him and all the time is rushing to save him from any hazard, unreal usually, is basically is reacting to them one time, two times. Then he learns that there is no point of getting anxious, and his body is backing it with the lower levels of cortisol. And this situation of hypocortisolism is connected to the development of autoimmune disease. So we can see that there is like a vicious circle of stress and physical illness that are combined one to the other and interrelated for stress to induce event that have an impact on immune function that leads to physical and physiological stress, which play roles in the development of autoimmune disease. Many patients with autoimmune disease report unusual emotional stress before the outbreak, and stress can also cause disease exacerbation. This disease causes significant stress in the patient, thus again lead to stress-inducing events, etc. So there is this circle is going, and the inflammation is feeding itself all the time. Now, is it genetics or epigenetics? Now, epigenetics is the influence of the surrounding over the genes. Epigenetics modification influence gene expression and alter cellular function without modifying the gene sequence. So there won't be a genetic reason, but there will be a reason which is due to a problem in epigenetics communication with the DNA. Currently, autoimmune inflammatory disease are not thought to be caused by gene mutation, rather a combination of genetics susceptibility and epigenetic modification arising from exposure to personal and environmental influence that define individual disease expression or symptomology and outcome. So we can see a backup for this claim. It's supported by the fact that genetically identical monozygotic twins can differ regarding the frequency of development and symptomology of autoimmune inflammatory disorders. So this is to summarize the idea that I presented here, the idea that we thought about, that there is parental overprotection leads to anxiety and thus leads to stress, which affect physically over the NEI system, the nervous system, the endocrine gland, and the immune system, thus lead to autoimmune disease. It is our intention to conduct clinical research, investigation, the experience of parenting of people suffering from autoimmune or autoinflammatory condition. We figure out that we can find evidence for overprotection, overprotective parenting experience in their childhood. Thank you very much. There is research, written down research, that all the research that was presented here, we summarize it and put it on an article and publish it, so we can send it to you if you want to see the details and all the research which was involved in writing down all this presentation. You are more than happy, and I hope that this will inspire interdisciplinary thinking, because it's very hard to combine OCD with autoimmune system. Usually, people are not familiar with these two aspects of human existence, and the only way to combine between two mechanisms like parental involvement and immune system can come only from interdisciplinary research and joint effort as such. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Erez. Thank you for this interesting lecture. Here in Mexico, there have been the National Institute of Psychiatrics, Juan Ramón de la Fuente, where Dr. Lenin Pavón has investigated so far the influence of these cytokines, you know, the interleukin-1, interleukin-6, and tumoral necrosis factor. And whenever they get over 10 nanomoles of concentration on the bloodstream, the patient gets depressed and anxiety. So my question is regarding how long have you been researching neuroendocrino immunological network in your country?
When we start to look for people that are expert in this area, we didn't find any.
Oh,
not in Israel and not many in the world. We didn't find any evidence on article target on this combination. Nevertheless, it's due to the appearance of cytokines in both psychiatric problems and autoimmune problems. We think that there might be straight connections, and we found a lot of research through which you can establish a logical pathway between the two, and we can do a clinical research that asks, but it still won't show a direct connection between overprotectiveness and autoimmune disease, but yet the pathway is there. We can see it built from bricks of research that we collected, and we can see that there is a connection between these two positions, overprotectiveness of parents and overprotectiveness of immune system. And what you say about depression and cytokines is also another backing up for this idea, because if it's induced by depression, maybe depression can induce also higher levels of cytokines. It can go both directions. And being on a constant depression, because you live next to anxious parents, it can drive you into depression. It can lead you to higher levels of cytokines and inflammatory ingredients. And in adulthood, it will be evolved eventually to autoimmune conditions.
Yeah. Thank you. Here we have a question from Dr. Susan Rash from India. Is there any solution which was used to treat this autoimmune disorder? I couldn't understand if it was mentioned.
I didn't mention it, but they use anti-inflammatory medicine in order to treat OCD. And this research that I put inside, I didn't put it inside this presentation, but definitely they treated the patients with OCD with anti-inflammatory medicines and show a very big improvement in the prevalence of OCD and the severity of the symptoms.
Thank you. Here we have a question from Freddy Cuenca. Is there evidence that maternal or paternal overprotection when trying to care for children in balance tries to unsuccessful supplant of the functions of the immune system?
There is in the article there is a very big bibliography list that every line in this presentation is supported by research. So you can see that we build it brick by brick from research, and you can see all the direct line in this article. Yes, there is the question is yes. The answer is yes.
Thank you, Dr. Erez. I wonder if Dr. Philip Macmillan, who's already in the audience, nor Dr. Shankara Shetty would ask any questions regarding their expertise and background regarding this topic.
Yes, thank you very much, Raul. I'd love to ask a question. I'm sorry that I had to jump in late, so I missed the first part of the presentation, but I got the general gist with regards to the link with the cytokines and cortisol. When we think of what we see with long COVID, because this is now where the specific question comes, and I've been able to see some of the blood results from patients looking at the cytokines, and in all of them, they have abnormal cytokine profiles, either inflammatory like VEGF, tumor necrosis factor, definitely interferon gamma, and with the characteristics of their symptoms, with the fatigue and the depression, I think I came to the conclusion that a lot of it was related to direct effects of the cytokines on the hypothalamus. Any thoughts about that?
In the beginning, the idea arose from COVID and the cytokine storm in lungs. It seems to us that it's like a physical panic, state of physical panic, which all the immune system is rushing to the lungs at once, and that's caused the failure of the lungs and all what we know about COVID. And from this idea, we come to think about this overprotectiveness and overreactiveness, and find similarities between the ability of the person to deal with psychological circumstances and physiological circumstances. So, like when you are more balanced emotionally, allegedly you're supposed to react a bit better towards these circumstances. The body as well.
Yeah, and I suspect it's along the lines of when people are stressed, they are more prone to having infections because it actually changes the immune profile in their body just being under stress. So, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm sure that is a big part of that. I don't know if, do you mind stopping sharing your screen so that we can see?
I will. Just a second. Excuse me for not doing it.
Yes. I don't know if Shankara had any questions.
No, Philip, just to reiterate, the nervous system interaction with the endocrine and how it influences immunology is vitally important. I think with the pandemic, we saw the immediate effects of anxiety, fears, suppression of our immunity by lack of exposure to a variety of microbes. We saw those immediate effects. I think what Ofer is talking about is more the psychiatric influence long term. And so being exposed to chronic stress through your life, through overprotective parenting, and how that translates into an inappropriate immune response over time, triggering autoimmunity. So I think we're looking at the short and the long-term effects of...
I could phrase it better. Yeah.
I think, is it Dr. Susan from India has a hand up?
As a question, yes. Mm-hmm.
I just, autoimmune disorder always fascinated me because in allopathic line of treatment, we were given the impression that it is non-curable, you can only control it. And I was really listening to it very carefully. Your research is very good. But what I see now is that the existing conditions, like I would go with Dr. Shankara Shetty, that the panic created and the information given, it has actually exaggerated the autoimmune disorder conditions. The vaccination which has come in. So you have mask, you have testing mania going on, then you have vaccination going on, lockdowns, and then this vaccine, the content of vaccine itself, it is creating autoimmune disorders in all age group, those who are taking vaccine. So the solution is there. And I'm very happy to understand that in India we have started thinking of integrated natural medicine systems. So we all combine it together. That where you are saying the overprotective parenting, and then at the same time you have got the environment from where the agents are coming in. The epigenetic is mattering a lot, and all these things. We come with a combination of treatment. Whether now I'm sure that Dr. M.K. Sharma is going to present that one of the combination, and at the same time I use chlorine dioxide, and we have seen that people are really getting rid of the autoimmune disorders and living a normal life. So it's nice to hear the research part of it. And at the same time, I'm always interested to bring the solution part of it, because that is where our cause, understanding the cause brings the solution. So fantastic. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we should move straight on. I know that you've mentioned Dr. Sharma. Is it okay, Raul, if we go on to our next speaker?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just do a quick introduction, Dr. Sharma. Thank you very much, Ofer. If you don't mind waiting around in case we have some more questions after. So
Yes.
we have Dr. Nand Kishore Sharma for University of Florida, a naturopathic nutritionist doctor, master in energy medicine, Reiki, and psychological powers, expert in past lives. He's 72 years old and a world-renowned naturopath, nutritionist, Reiki grandmaster, having trained over 500,000 students worldwide. He's been running his own hospital for 20 years successfully, working on cancer and other diseases. And he is here to share with us about energy medicine, a natural healing booster for stronger or strongest immunity. Dr. Sharma, yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My greetings to all members who are here today, and namaste from my